G'day guys, I'm just going to go through some trig proofs with you. I think I've got 8 here. So before we get started and you guys are giving these problems a go, you might want to just get a cheat sheet written down. No reason why you can't use this to do trig proofs. There's no point memorizing all this. It should be made available to you, and with time you'll get to remember all this anyway by doing some of these proofs. So let's get stuck in. 8 really simple ones to start with. Maybe tomorrow I'll get onto some more challenging ones. So let's prove that secant x times cotangent of x is cosecant of x. So remember, we know these ones. So cosec is 1 over sine, sec is 1 over cosine, and cot is 1 over tan. So cosecant, secant, and cotangent. And then with these are just the short terms. I remember sometimes in some books this will be CSC. Alright, so we start with left hand side. Well, that's equal to sec x times cot x, secant x times cotangent x, and secant x is 1 over cosine. So 1 over cosine x times 1 over, and cotangent is 1 over tan x, or tangent x. So that's going to be 1 over cosine x, and that's the reciprocal of tan. And so the reciprocal of tan is going to be cosine over sine, times cosine x over sine x. Cosines cancel. We're left with 1 over sine x. And from our formula, 1 over sine x is cosec x. Cosecant of x. I probably should have brackets around all of these, but I just couldn't really be bothered. And you can do a black box there for the end of the proof. Oh, and equals right hand side. So we've shown that the left hand side is equivalent to all of these, and is then therefore equivalent to the right hand side. Okay, tan. Whenever I see tan, I like to just get that written out as sine x over cosine x. I'm timesing it by 1 over sine x. The sines cancel. We have 1 over cosine x, and so that's going to be secant x. Done. That's 2. So here's the third one. Prove that tangent x times cosine squared of x minus cotangent x times sine x squared is equivalent to 0. So again, tan, I write that as sine x over cosine of x times cosine squared x minus cotangent, well, that's the reciprocal of tan, so I write that as cosine x over sine x times sine squared of x. And obviously this is the left hand side. One of those powers is going to cancel with that sine, so here I have sine x cosine x, and here I have a similar thing happens. I have cosine x sine of x, and so those are obviously the same thing, because order doesn't matter in multiplication of trig functions. And we have the right hand side. And the other way you can end proofs is QED. So I don't know how long that's taken us, but I think it's less than 5 minutes to do 3 trig proofs. So like I said, these ones are pretty simple. Okay, and I'm also referring to the sheet continually as well. So let's have a look at this one. Well, we're going to have the left hand side is sine x. You usually write the exact same thing again, but I'm just skipping some steps just to keep the video nice and succinct. Sine x cosine x, and I'm going to make this times 1 over cosine squared of x, because that is indeed 1 over cosine, and it's squared. This is going to be equivalent to sine x. Once we've done the cancellation, we've only got a cosine on the bottom, cosine x, and we know from our formula sheet that sine of cosine is tan x which is equivalent to the right hand side or equal to the right hand side, and we end the proof. Another one done. Okay. Right, now we're going to prove that cosec x over cotangent x is sec x. So I believe what we want to be doing here is we'll write out what these are in terms of sine and cosine. So left hand side, well that's cosec x divided by cotangent x, well that's cosec x divided by 1 over tan x, isn't it? Well, we can just multiply by the reciprocal, and when we write this in terms of sine and cosine, so that's 1 over sine x times sine x over cosine x, because that's sine over cosine. Sines cancel, we're left with 1 over cosine x, and we know that that is secant x, right hand side, quod erat demonstratum, something like that. Done, end of proof. Okay, what you want to do with this one, obviously pausing the video and giving it a go, but before we do this, when we do this one, I've noticed that I can actually factorize out a sine x. So I go sine x, I've got now 1 minus cosine squared x, and from this proof, from this identity, we know that 1 take away cosine squared x is sine squared x. So this is actually sine x times sine squared x, which means we have sine cubed, or sine x cubed, which is the right hand side. Done. Easy as that. Okay, couple more. Cosine x over tan x is equivalent to 1 minus sine squared x over sine x. So we'll write this as the left hand side. You don't always have to start with left hand side, but I found that with all of these ones I've done, it's just been easier to start with left hand side. That's going to be cosine x divided by tan x, which is cosine x divided by sine x over cosine x, which is cosine x multiplied by the reciprocal, which means that the top is going to become cosine x squared over sine x, and we know that that is 1 minus sine squared x over sine from our previous identity, and that is the right hand side. Done. Alright, so I'm just doing algebraic manipulation and just understanding how fractions work, really. And then this is actually my first, I've kind of used this identity here, but this is my first big identity, isn't it? Replacing the cosine squared x with 1 minus sine squared x. Let's have a look at this one. Left hand side is, I know I'd usually write this out again, but I'm just going to go straight into 1 over sine x squared plus 1 over cosine x squared. I want to write this as with a common denominator, so I want this over sine squared x cosine squared x, which means I'm going to have to multiply this by, if I want this to be cosine squared x sine squared x, I have to multiply it top by cosine squared x, and I have to multiply, if I want this to be sine squared x cosine squared x, and then I need to times the top by sine squared, so there we have it. Now the top is just 1. So I have 1 over sine x squared cosine x squared, and so that's 1 over cos x squared. That's 1 over sine x squared, which is cosec x squared, times 1 over cosine x squared, which is sec x squared, which is the right hand side, and we're done. I think there's one more. No, that is all. So there was, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 proofs. Hopefully that makes sense.